All right, everyone, welcome to Corridor Conversations. We're so happy that you could join us today. We've got a couple of different topics that we will be covering today. And I just wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next slide. I am Priscilla Kalugden, the Marketing Communications and Customer Experience Manager for Capital Corridor. I'll be moderating today's session, and we also have with us Jim Allison, who's our Manager of Planning, and Leo Sanchez, our Deputy Managing Director. And as a reminder for today's event, just a bit of housekeeping. All of the participant cameras will be turned off, and you will also be muted by default. If you could please use the chat feature if you have any questions about the transmission today, if like you can't hear us or can't see something, let us know in the chat feature. And if you have a question, please feel free to drop that in the Q&A section, and that will help us manage the different questions that are coming in for the panelists and help us answer those either via the Q&A written posts or on air. So as well, we are recording this session, and the replay will be available in a few days after this event. Thank you. So our topics for today's Corridor Conversation include an update on our Tap to Ride contactless payment pilot program. And we're also going to talk about some very exciting news, which is our spring schedule development and what the process will be for what that development is and getting feedback from customers. After that, we'll have an open question and answer session. And so with that, we'll just dive right in. And I'd like to introduce Jim Allison. He's our Manager of Planning, and he will be talking about Tap to Ride.
Hey there. Thanks for joining in. I'm the Manager of Planning, as Priscilla said, and I'll be talking a little bit about what we started in actually internally before March 2023, but then made available to the public in March 2023, and we've been working with it ever since then. So we've been long working with the state of California to see about changing the process of changing fare payments in transit, and we've been working on them with a program called CALITP, California Integrated Travel Project. And part of CALITP is to look at the way payments are made within the transit industry. There's also the way data flows to know where to go and take your transit trip. And then there's also eligibility benefits, so like senior discounts, veterans discounts. So we're helping with that, but we're also a implementer, and that's what Tap to Ride is. And we're implementing the Tap to Ride contactless payment pilot, and that is where you use a symbol with a pre-registered card that you register on our site to put that registered card as eligible to tap on the reader that you kind of see in the picture here. And you tap on and then you tap off, and that settles your payment. And then on the back end, for those who ride enough, there's a fare capping thing where you get a discount after riding so many trips. So the program is was designed to allow a few initial folks in, and then have them have us learn a lot of things that we learned over the rest of the year. And we're now at an important phase of kind of relaunching it, having applied our lessons learned. So see if there's any questions coming up. I'm going to look here. Okay, those aren't the questions that's related to this. So right now, the Tap to Ride schedule, as I mentioned, we have a whole bunch of new things that we want to roll out. We already have updated a fare product. So we used to have a fare capping, like I talked about, that was over the span of a week. If you got to your 7th ride in a week, then it was starting to be free, and then it reset after that week. And we found out that didn't really match people's needs as well as we thought initially. And that's a lot of the changes since COVID made us relook at that. And so now we've outlined a capping product that resets after 5 trips and makes the 5th trip free. So this more matches the way that our customers seem to ride during the week, seem to average about 2 round trips per week or so. And then you'll get your, fifth one would be free, and then it will reset again. And I think we've set the parameters for that to be good across 30 days. So it kind of resets itself. So you have that much time to do those trips. We've also improved the credit card registration process, excuse me. It was a little clunky, and we worked with our vendor on the back end to make that more seamless. And we've learned a heck of a lot about the banking industry, because some cards didn't work with transit payments. And we've been talking with Visa and MasterCard, who are the cards that we've been working with, to make them work in all cases as much as possible. But there's so many banking cards out there, it's so hard to control all of that. So, so if you have problems, we have a helpline to try to look into those problems, solve those problems. And those of you who are involved in it have been invaluable in terms of us learning these lessons. And then we did maintain a pool of registrants who started with us, and gradually lifestyles change. You stop riding the train as much, so we've lost participation of some folks. So we have about half the number of active participants as we used to. So we're going to be launching out to reobtain a good population of riders, and that's going to be coming up very soon. And then after that, the future steps, we would expand the participant pool, and that would be obtaining more riders than we have today. And that's good because it gives our conductors more experience validating the use of the cards and making sure you're tapping in and have tapped in, and then reminding you hopefully to tap out, which is the number one thing to do: tap out, tap out. And then finally, you will see, if you're traveling in different cars, we are starting to put these readers in all the cars, and we only got 5 cars left right now. It should be all done by the end of November. And over time, we're going to be registering folks that have Discover cards, and then eventually American Express cards. Those are going to roll out kind of on a slower time frame than expanding the pool, but we'll again get the word out to folks that might want to use their Discover and American Express cards in that way. And then the next step is to expand this into the San Francisco buses. So those of you who would ride between Emeryville and the San Francisco stop, we want to include the readers on those buses so you can tap on and tap off. So let's see, that's that. So that is kind of it for Tap to Ride. There's a whole lot of stuff, the iceberg that's under the water that you don't see, that's been very complicated, and all sorts of good learning lessons. We're the only intercity rail operator in the United States, to our awareness, that is doing this right, just like this. This is the way we're doing it, using our Wi-Fi network and so forth. So lots of lessons learned, but happy to ask or answer any questions that you might have as you go along. But looks like we can go to the next slide topic.
We do have a few questions. I think that I'm going to go ahead and have Jim answer them now about Tap to Ride. They're specific to this. One is, how would the free trips in Tap to Ride compare to the 10 ride ticket fare? Will it still be cheaper to buy a multi-trip ticket, or is that going to be phased out?
So the key way to answer that, there's 2 different things that are going on. The 10 ride is a product from Amtrak, and then the Tap to Ride is its own unique product, and it's been differentiated actually from the 10 ride ticket product. We've looked at the usage results and looked at the way people are riding, and so we're kind of offering a new product at this point in time. So it may make sense for you to try Tap to Ride, or it may make sense to go to the 10 ride or the monthly, or you don't ride that often and you could do Tap to Ride, or you could do the single ride ticket. But those are fundamentally different products. On our website, for Tap to Ride, there's a calculator to look at which would you be better off with this product or that product. So that's the way to kind of answer that question. It's kind of case by case, but the offer that we're making is more in line with the way we're seeing people using it and with our goals to make it more accessible to those who are making kind of different trip choices than they used to kind of pre-COVID.
A lot of this goes to, just us wanting to help offer more flexible ticket options for our riders. And I think that, one of the things that we're learning out of the pilot is to, make adjustments to what the fare offer is and in response to how people are traveling. So I think that that's one of the exciting things about the Tap to Ride program that we can do structurally with our setup here. So eager to see your feedback on it. So please, if you have comments, we always want to hear from our riders. The other question that we have here about Tap to Ride is Cal ITP has offered senior discount capability and just added low income Cal Fresh capability, and wondering about our plans for that.
Okay, thanks for that question. Our plans are to tap into that for Tap to Ride, but not right away right now. We're still solving a number of problems that are just basic for the relaunch, but those modules essentially are there. And when it makes sense in terms of timing and capacity, those who register for various eligibility discounts will be able to do that. And it's almost as easy as flipping a switch, but it also requires some back end changes with our payment processor and so forth. So it's coming. It's just we have a list of things we're trying to get through before we can offer that.
Great, thank you, Jim. And if you have more questions about Tap to Ride, we'll have a little bit more time at the end for Q&A. But first up, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Leo Sanchez, our Deputy Managing Director, and he's going to talk a little bit about our plans for the spring schedule change.
Thanks, Priscilla. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So what I'll first start with is to talk a little bit about what's been going on behind the scenes that's leading up to this effort. And a couple of things that have been limiting our ability to, first of all, get back to full service schedule is to first, number one, have the funding to be able to do that. And secondly, have the equipment and resources to be able to make that happen. So with the reason that I'm mentioning this is that we're actually at a key moment in time where we're both working on making improvements to the existing schedule and also restoring our full service schedule. So for those of you that have been riding with us on the weekends, that has been restored for some time. On the weekdays, however, we've only been running 24 weekday trains. So we are going to be going back in the spring to 30 trains. And part of what's going to enable us to do that is the venture cars that have been added onto the San Joaquin service. They will continue to be added. We have 3 sets in service right now. The cab cars are next in line, and that will give us the equipment that we need in order to be able to add service on our trains. The first thing we're going to be doing is, again, lengthening our trains this fall to give ample room, especially for some of the concerns that we've already seen regarding both standing room only situations and bicycle capacity constraints. As we get going on our schedule, however, we're going to be focused on a few different key goals. One is the reliability improvement south of Oakland. And some of you that have been staying tuned with some of the grants that we've been applying to have maybe seen that we were awarded funds to be able to complete Agnew siding and the Santa Clara crossover. Those are key for our success when it relates to our reliability south of Oakland. In our schedule, we're going to be looking at near-term things that may not touch on some of those, but we are going to be revisiting those once we get into our intermediate and long-term schedule goals. So I want to plant that seed because there might be some things that we might not be able to do today, but we're going to revisit once those projects are completed. The other things we want to do is we want to improve midday service. We realize that we have some really extended gaps in our service, and we are going to be looking at adding trains in the middle of the day so that we close some of those gaps. This is both true for south of Oakland and also even some of our trains that run between Sacramento and Oakland. And we are really going to do our best to look at what's working well and looking what's not working. So that way, those trains that are working well, we're hoping to have minimal changes to those, and they might be more to do with some of the meets that we have with certain trains and some of the turns that relate to some of those trains. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then lastly, and probably the most important part of this effort is last time we did a schedule change, we heard you guys loud and clear, and we want to have you guys provide customer outreach. So one of the things we're working on right now is getting a contractor on board that's going to help us with surveying riders and being able to gauge your interest in different options that we have available. So we're going to be doing some of the legwork to be able to have some options ready to go with you with and have you provide input into what might work better. So I'm going to just throw out an example. Right now, train 538 coming out of Oakland is a really, really busy in-demand train. We also run a train at right after, like 30 minutes after, train 540. But unfortunately, clearly people have a lot of interest in train 538. So even though that's an option 30 minutes later, people choose to get on 538. So we're going to be looking to see, well, is it possible to maybe adjust train 536, move that one up closer to 540 instead of having the 1 hour earlier run. So those are things that we're going to be looking to see what we can do. And just stay tuned and see what we're going to be looking at in order for you guys to see what options are available to you all. And I'm going to pause there. I'm going to see if there's any questions that have started to come through regarding the schedule change. All right. So it looks like I see one. And it's about the 5:45 a.m. Sacramento weekday departure that would help people get to work at 8. That actually is one of the trains that we're looking at. So Benjamin, thanks for bringing that up. And then I also see a comment about a 5:45 p.m. Oakland weekday departure for the return, so the riders don't have to wait for an hour during peak afternoon. Great comment. So those are both things that we're going to be looking at. So I think the Sacramento one, I feel pretty confident to say that that is almost certainly one that we're going to be looking at. And then the Oakland one, I'll have to look at and take your feedback and see what options we have for that train.
And Leo, there's another question that came in about will full service restoration also include more connecting buses east of Sacramento?
Thanks for that. Sorry, I was having issue with my mute button. So yeah, so I guess the answer to that would be we are looking to maintain the same level of bus service that we have. So one of the things that has been a challenge for us is making sure that we maintain our costs down. And so I think one of the things that we want to do is we want to see what are some bus connections that are working, what are some that are not. So to answer your question, I would like to look at the bus connections east of Sacramento going up to Roseville and see what can we accomplish with the buses that we have today. So I will take your comment, and that will be part of what we can consider in the polling. We have some limited resources on the bus side, but we can definitely look at what are some options on some of those bus connections.
And I see we have another question that's just come in. Is there a goal of providing hourly service during commute hours south of Oakland? Not having a 5 p.m. northbound departure from San Jose is a real challenge for commuters.
Thanks for that question, Priscilla. So one of the things that I first want to clarify is the 30 weekday trains that we have those slots between Sacramento to Oakland. We actually have one round trip train that we do from San Jose all the way up to Auburn, for those of you that may not be familiar with that. But south of Oakland, we actually only have 14 slots. So when we look at the schedule, that is one of the challenging parts of what we have to weigh out is what can we do with the existing train slots? And how can we best manage that? So I guess to answer the question, it's not really feasible that we would run an hourly service given the constraints of equipment and slots right south of Oakland. But we will look at figuring out, can we have service maybe bi-hourly? So every couple of hours between Oakland and San Jose may be something that we might be able to do. And I hear you on the 5 p.m. northbound departures from San Jose. So that is part of what we're looking at. And especially now that we're starting to see more of our Silicon Valley commuters returning back to in-person work, we realize that that's something that we have to evaluate.
Great. Thank you, Leo, for that, for the responses there to the questions that came in. And when Leo's talking about this customer outreach that we plan to do, we definitely want to hear from as many current riders as possible. And if you have friends who maybe were riding, but they're not riding anymore for a particular reason, we would also like for you to share the survey with them as well, because obviously we would love to have riders back if we can make the schedule meet their needs, and want to hear from them. So what the best way to do that would be to sign up for our email newsletter, and we'll have some links on doing that later on in the show. But basically, we'll be reaching out via our email newsletter list, via social media as well. So please, please, please help us share that far and wide to people who are current riders, or who who are also riding the train, as well as potential riders, maybe people who used to ride and are no longer. That would be really helpful to us, because we do want to hear from you. We want to make sure that with our limited equipment and slots, that we are able to put together something that meets your needs. Let's see, I see that there are a few other questions that have come in. I think, well, there are two questions. Two people have asked about the connection into the Salesforce Transit Center. I don't know if you wanted to answer that one live, Leo. Oh, I guess we're going to just segue into our Q&A session right here.
All right. I can definitely answer that question. I'll start with those for the Q&A. Thanks for those questions. So I see I'll start with the second question that came in, and it's specifically about the coordination with AC Transit. We remain open to that option. We definitely would like to work with AC Transit. I think our comment to all of you is to continue to advocate for that when you participate at AC Transit meetings, board meetings. I know they also have been doing a lot of ridership outreach and looking at engagement from the public. And I think that is one of those that we really would want to see as part of the AC Transit's realigned plan. I think right now it's probably low on their list of priorities from what I've seen, but we definitely would want to have that be one of our options. As some of you know, we've had a lot of success with working with El Dorado Transit. That's a similar partnership where we work with a public agency and we take riders from Sacramento to South Lake Tahoe. We would welcome that opportunity, working with AC Transit to get riders from Emeryville to San Francisco. And then to address the first question of getting into Salesforce Transit Center, that really would be how we would be able to accomplish that, is by working with AC Transit to get into one of those bays. The reality is that right now with the service that we offer, it is a really expensive service. And I know some of you that have taken that service have seen increased costs that have been targeted to that route. And it's because the costs have really have increased over the last few years, really since the pandemic. And we're trying to manage the cost while still being able to offer that service. But the reality is that the only way that we would be able to enter the Salesforce Transit Center would be through a partnership with AC Transit.
Great, thanks, Leo. At this time, I mean, if there are any other questions that you might have, please drop them in the chat. We'd be happy to answer them. I know that Sabrina's going to add in a link in the chat for signing up for our email newsletter so that you can be informed of when of all of our happenings, but especially about the schedule survey that will be coming out in the next upcoming several weeks, but also about fun events like tomorrow's Cappy Hour, which will be on select trains. We'll have staff riding on select trains, but all the trains will have discounted drinks and free cookies. So I hope that you guys are riding tomorrow and enjoy, and you can wear your Halloween costume if you want, because it's a Halloween theme Cappy Hour. So just wanted to make sure that you guys know that. And looks like I'll see if I can drop it into the chat and for you. But for the email newsletter link. Are there any other questions that have come in? Let's see. Open archives. Oh, here we go. So done this one. Okay, there's another question here about, are there plans for Capital Quarter connecting buses to offer bus only ticketing similar to what some San Joaquin's buses are already doing?
I could take that. So the answer to that is yes. So like the example that I actually just brought up, the El Dorado Transit is actually an open door service, and it does offer a bus only ticketing. So if you want to just hop on at Sacramento and go to South Lake Tahoe for the day, you can definitely do that without needing an Amtrak ticket. That similarly would be the approach if we were able to work with AC Transit on a joint partnership. That would also be an open door service. So riders could take either the bus directly from Emeryville over to Salesforce Transit Center, or they could choose to actually connect to one of our trains. So we have largely been doing these open door services with other transit agencies. So we have a number of examples that offer those options, and we would want to do that with other services.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions that people might have about the schedule? Anything that you would like to comment on just in general? It looks like another question's come in. Will the South Bay Connect program add any capacity in terms of number of trains between San Jose and Oakland, or is CCJPA looking at any other corridors? Being limited to only 7 trips per day per direction is quite a severe constraint on the ability to grow the service between San Jose and Oakland. Good questions. Here we go. Jim, answer that one.
Great, that's a good question. Right now, the South Bay Connect project does not involve any increased capacity for frequency, but it is, once implemented, it sets the stage for a future increase in capacity. It does eliminate some congestion, eliminates travel time initially, but it takes the 7 trains that we have the permission to use and shifts them over to a more direct route. And it's then that's going to be a faster route for folks traveling from up north to south and vice versa on the way back. The next steps would involve additional track capacity, perhaps in that corridor or in other corridors to get additional round trips. And so if you go back to the days of the CCJPA Vision Plan, that's when we envisioned the South Bay Connect project would happen first to resolve some routing issues between freight and passenger rail. and kind of detangle that, and also separate our service from BART, because it didn't make sense to, you know, provide almost duplicate service with BART in that same corridor. So once South Bay Connect goes in and is kind of underway, then we'll start working on some other projects that could lead to frequency increase and could, you know, lead to kind of what Leo's talking about, and other times new slots to fit in and help people have more travel options. That's my answer there.
Okay, great. Let's see. It looks like I'm having a little trouble getting the message out to everyone for the email newsletter, but you can find that on our website on capitalcorridor.org. We do have one question that's come in, for another question about, can you comment on the hydrogen train project and why the state is pursuing it versus proven technology like electrification? Electrified Caltrain is great. Would love to see it on this corridor, and it looks like Leo is going to answer that question for us. Thank you, Leo.
Thanks for the question. I also answered this one on the chat, but the main challenge that we have with electrification is that on the Caltrain side, they do own their own right-of-way, so they have the ability and flexibility to pursue a variety of different technologies, and that is where we are limited. Union Pacific almost exclusively owns the right-of-way on which we run, so 168 out of the 170 miles are actually owned by Union Pacific Railroad, and Union Pacific, along with the rest of the Class 1s, have really been reluctant to have electrification on their right-of-way. So that is really the limiting point. And I think somebody also, I don't know if it was Elliot as well that asked the question, or somebody else asked the related question, is if we have interest or if we have, the state intends to purchase right-of-way. And I think the answer to that is, I think we would welcome that opportunity if presented it, but Union Pacific at least has not been interested in selling some of their right-of-way. So that's where we are with that topic. So we're looking at other options. I think if we have the ability to pursue electrification in the future, and if other Class 1s become more open to that option, then we would certainly pursue it. But right now, I think that we know that the only two options that we really have that we can pursue are hydrogen fuel cell or battery electric.
And then Leo, to that end, I think the state is, because of those limitations, are working with looking at options like hydrogen fuel cells to see if that works in certain corridors, right? And so we don't know whether that's going to be appropriate for us quite yet. The technology needs to bear itself out. Is that?
Yep, absolutely. So right now, the first corridor that will have that will be SBCTA in Southern California. They have a hydrogen fuel cell multiple unit that they'll start running maybe early next year. I think they already have it down there. They're doing some preliminary testing. And then the state also has options for that similar type of equipment that Stadler is making.
Great. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Jim, for responding to that question. Looks like we don't have any other questions in right now, but as always, we are open to hearing your feedback. And if some questions come up after you're done with this session, you can always reach out to us on our website at capitalcorridor.org. We personally read all the messages that come in. You can also follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever it's called now. And we would love to hear from you there. Again, we did drop the email newsletter link, sign up in the chat. So I think that you probably already are on this list since you're here today, but if you could share that and let your fellow writers know, that would be really, really helpful so that they can be informed of when the upcoming survey is about the schedule and all the other great things that are happening on Capitol Corridor. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today, and we will have the recording up in the next few days on our YouTube channel. And we hope that you have a great day and great Halloween, and thank you so much for writing. Bye.